A short while ago, I did a video comparing 14 different graphics cards across the 9 most commonly used mining algorithms to see what GPU gives you the most mining hash rate per watt of electricity used. And while knowing the mining performance in terms of power efficiency is very important, there is also a whole other side of the coin, which is knowing what GPU will give you the most hash rate per dollar spent when buying the card. Or in other words, what is the cheapest GPU that's going to give you the most hash rate for the least amount of money spent? And I know, for many of you, GPU mining isn't even profitable right now, but this video is for those of you who might want to take advantage of the cheap GPU prices we've got right now to get as much hash rate as possible while it's still relatively cheap to do so, because I'm guessing that we're all willing to bet that when or if GPU mining profitability goes back up again, GPU prices are going to skyrocket. And then we're all going to be kicking ourselves wishing we had stocked up on GPUs while they were still cheap. So let's look at what GPUs give us the most hash rate per dollar after a quick word from our sponsor.
Unminable is a service that lets you mine like normal on your GPU or ASIC rigs, but be paid out in over 70 different cryptos, most of which are, well, unminable. This is a great service for those of you who might want to build a diverse crypto portfolio without having to go through the hassle of giving away your personal information, paying exchange fees, and triggering taxable events when buying coins. Thanks to Unminable, you also don't have to make the choice between mining the most profitable coin and mining the coin that you actually want to hold long term. For example, my Jazz Miner is the only rig in my farm that's been consistently profitable since the ETH merge. However, it mines Ethereum Classic, which isn't really a coin that I'm too keen on holding personally. But with Unminable, I can keep that same level of mining profitability, but be paid in different coins I actually do want to hold, like maybe Dogecoin or Flux or Bitcoin.
Also, make sure you add hashtag Seb to the end of your worker name to get a 25% discount on their fee. You do this in your miner batch file on Windows or in setup miner config in your HiveOS flight sheet.
So check out Unminable through the link in the video description and get started today.
Now, I know you're tempted to just skip to the results, but if you do, you'll probably end up confused and have loads of questions because there are a couple of things that I really need to explain quickly about this comparison. So when I did all of the research, testing and math for this video, my goal was that I wanted a result that would be as usable as possible in the real world for at-home miners like me. And with that in mind, there are two things we really need to consider. The first is what GPUs to actually include in the comparison. And here it's all about finding a perfect balance. And what I settled on was to include all of the NVIDIA RTX 3000 series GPUs, except the 3050 and 3090 Ti, and all of the AMD RX 6000 series, except for the 6900 XT and the 50 variants of the 6000 series. The reason for choosing these specific GPUs for the test was actually quite simple. It's because while GPUs older than that might be cheaper in terms of hash rate per dollar spent, they use so much electricity that mining on them most likely won't be profitable for anybody with a residential electric price. So including them would be pretty pointless. And on the flip side of that, anything newer like the NVIDIA RTX 4000 series is just so obnoxiously expensive that they would come dead last in a comparison like this anyway. So while they are quite powerful for mining, they are just not a good value for money at all in terms of hash rate per dollar. The second thing we need to consider is that GPUs don't mine on their own. They need you to also spend money on the actual mining rigs as well. You know, either ready-made server cases or parts like motherboards, CPUs, RAM, power supplies, and so on with open-air mining rigs. And the reason why this is relevant is because that means we can't just look at how many megahash a GPU gets in relation to its price in a vacuum, because that's not what reality would look like when actually buying GPUs for mining. Let me bring up an example to show you what I mean. So let's say we have GPU A, which costs $100 and gets 100 megahash of mining hash rate. And we also have GPU B, which costs $200 and get 200 megahash. On paper, these two seem to be completely equal in terms of hash rate per dollar spent, because they both get 1 megahash per dollar. But in reality, to get the same total hash rate, you'd need to buy twice as many of GPU A, and that would of course mean that you'd also have to buy twice as many server cases or mining rig components like motherboards, CPUs, risers, and so on. So even though on paper these two GPUs look like they offer the same value for money in terms of hash rate per dollar, if you were to go with GPU A, you'd end up spending more money in the end, since you'd have to spend twice the amount of money on additional mining rig parts. This concept is usually referred to as density, and we'll see how that affects our results in just a little bit. Alright, so it's time to get into the results. But first I just want to quickly give a few shoutouts, because while I did a lot of the testing for these results myself, it wouldn't have been possible without some other creators that posted videos of their hash rate testing. So first up, obviously Kiwi Crypto Miner, which is where I got pretty much all of the AMD numbers in this video. If you got AMD cards for mining, subscribing to his channel is more or less obligatory, since his videos is going to help you get so much better performance out of your AMD cards. Secondly, thank you to Red Fox Crypto, who have done a lot of in-depth hash rate testing on the RTX 3000 series GPUs. You guys are probably already familiar with him. He's another mining YouTuber who is very focused on providing well-tested and researched content, just like I try to do here on this channel. And finally, massive shout out to MineSum10 here on YouTube, which is where I got most of the numbers for the RTX 3070 Ti, since unfortunately my 3070 Ti is no longer with us. So can we get some Fs in the chat for my 3070 Ti? Thank you. Yeah, so guys, please go check out all of their channels after you've finished watching this video. Links to them will all be down in the description. Alright, here we are on the computer. So let me start by running through the basics of the spreadsheet here. And by the way, I'll leave a link to the spreadsheet down in the video description. So if you open that and then hit File, Make Copy, you'll be able to edit the sheet if you want. So here you can see all of the GPUs included in the test, as well as their current price on eBay. I've then also included fields for how much building an actual mining rig costs, minus the GPUs of course, and how many GPUs can fit in each rig. And here I've gone with the most efficient option I could find, which is this off-brand server case from Amazon that costs $339 and holds up to 8 GPUs. I'll leave a link to that in the video description as well. I've personally never tried it, but I know Hobbyist Miner has a couple and he's very happy with them so far apparently. So we have the fields with the data and results for all the 9 different coin algorithms I'm comparing. What I'll do is I'll go through and explain this first one for Ethereum Classic, and then we'll just speed through the other ones after that. So we got the hash rate for each GPU, and then the regular dollars spent per hash when just considering the eBay price for the GPU. And I just want to mention here that the hash rate specified here is the hash rate you'd get when tweaking the clock settings for the card to be as power efficient as possible for each algorithm. For most of these cards on most of these algorithms, you can get more hash rate out of them by pushing a lot more power into them, but since I wanted this test to be as realistic as possible, the fact is that to be even close to profitable right now, you're all going to have to run these cards as power efficient as possible, since saving on power makes a bigger difference than getting a few extra mega hash. So with that out of the way, let's look at this field, which is taking the price of the GPU and adjusting it based on the hash rate it gets. This is to compensate for the concept of density, which we spoke about a bit earlier. And the easiest way to incorporate this into our calculation is to just take the price of the mining rig, divide that by the amount of GPUs you can fit in a rig, and then add that to the price of each GPU. At first you might think it doesn't make sense to add the same amount to each GPU, since shouldn't the weak GPUs be punished more than the powerful ones? But actually, this way they are appropriately punished when we then do the dollars spent per hash calculation. Since, adding, let's say $30 to the price of a GPU that does 30 mega hash would add a whole dollar per mega hash, right? While adding $30 to a GPU that does 120 mega hash only adds 25 cents per mega hash. So that is what we have here, the dollar price per hash when adjusting the GPU price for density. And then finally, we are using that value to score each GPU between 0 and 100, where the most cost-efficient GPU gets 100 points and the others get scored related to that one. The reason for scoring them like this is that the dollar per hash price is going to vary greatly between, the different coin algorithms here. So in order to be able to easily compare results between the different coins, we need to standardize the result like this. So we can see that for Ethereum Classic, most of the NVIDIA cards offer great value for money in terms of hash rate per dollar, with the 3080 on top closely followed by the 3060 Ti. The AMD cards are more expensive, however, only getting about 70% as much hash rate per dollar compared to the NVIDIA GPUs. And moving on to Caspa next, we again see some great value from NVIDIA, with the 3070 offering the most hash rate per dollar spent, closely followed by all three 3080 variants. AMD cards, however, aren't doing great here, the best one being the 6800 XT that gets you about 80% of the hash rate per dollar spent when compared to the 3070. Next up is Nexa, where again the 3080s offer great value, and the AMD cards are just so poor that we're not even going to talk about them, to be honest. Moving on, we have the KawPoW algorithm, which is used for a lot of coins like Ravencoin, Neoxa, Meowcoin, and so on. Again, we see two of the 3080 variants on top, and mostly good value offered by NVIDIA GPUs compared to the AMD ones that, again, only seem to get about 70% of the performance per dollar spent. We then have Radiant, where we see a similar story. The three 3080 variants offer the best value for money, with the most of the other NVIDIA GPUs close behind, right? And AMD, yeah, lagging behind again. Only around 70% of the hash rate per dollar spent compared to the NVIDIA ones. Next up is Flux, and here again we see a similar story as with Caspa, where the 3070 comes out on top, followed by the three 3080 variants, and just overall good value offered by NVIDIA. AMD, however, coming in with very poor performance, the worst one being the 6700 XT, which only gets about half the hash rate per dollar spent compared to the 3070. Moving on, we have Ergo, where the 3060 Ti actually takes the win, followed by two of the 3080 variants and the 3070. Again, the AMD cards are just very poor here, only getting about half the amount of hash rate per dollar spent. Then we have Conceal, where the 3070 comes out on top, closely followed by the 3080 12GB version, but we're actually seeing a rare occurrence of an AMD card here, with the 6600 XT actually getting about 90% of the hash rate per dollar spent compared to the 3070. Overall though, we are seeing better value offered by NVIDIA as opposed to the AMD ones. And finally, we have Bitcoin Gold, where again we are getting pretty decent performance across the board from NVIDIA, except for the 3060 variants and the 3090. And again, AMD is only getting about 50 to 60% of the hash rate per dollar spent compared to the best NVIDIA cards. Alright, so let's put all of these results together so that we can properly compare the GPUs after a quick word from our sponsor.
Established in 2017, Octominer is an international mining hardware company. They manufacture and engineer the best mining equipment in the industry and supply rigs to some of the largest mining farms around the world. Their GPU mining rigs also integrate with the top crypto operating systems like HiveOS, MinerStat, and Simple Mining. All parts come with an international 1-year warranty. Exciting news! They will be adding ASIC miners for sale to their website soon and launching a new product built specifically for ASIC home miners. Please visit octominer.com or email support@octominer.com for questions.
Alright, so we can see all of the results here, and in general we see a lot of high green numbers in the NVIDIA section and a lot of orange and red in the AMD section. If we look at this column, we can see the total score for each individual GPU, the top one actually being the 3080 12GB version. However, you might want to stay away from that one, to be honest. Check out my previous comparison video that I mentioned earlier, because then you'll find out why you want to avoid the 3080 12GB. Link to that video is in the description. But close behind that, we see the regular 3080 and then the 3070. The AMD cards, however, are all just still very expensive in relation to the amount of hash rate they get. We can also rank all the cards by sorting them here, which is like this column, and to see kind of a top list of the cards in order based on the total scores. And finally, there is also a column here that counts how many times a card offered the absolute best value for money, with the 3070 and 3080 12 gig both offering the most hash rate per dollar spent for 3 of the tested coins respectively. Now, to wrap this up, I just want to say that if you're watching this in the future, there might have been some hash rate optimizations for some of these cards on certain algorithms, since mining is always growing and there's always new innovation. There might also be new coins that are relevant then that we haven't even heard of now. But I just want to point out that all of the cards in this test were tested on an even playing field at the time of recording. So if you get the spreadsheet from the link in the description and enter the current prices that you can get these GPUs for, they should give you a fairly decent picture of the value for money they offer, even if there's been new miner developments or new coins since then.